think it's a good time to get started. So thank you everybody for coming to this Zoom meeting. I know everybody loves Zoom now that we're in a pandemic. We're super happy to, as the YYC IAM group to bring back a meetup for you. We've been sort of, as everybody has been, super busy, and the amount of IT work has just skyrocketed for everybody. I'm Z. I'm a leading member of the YYC IAM group. If you haven't met me before, today we're going to have a presentation by Techjutsu about securing verification with CIAM. From Techjutsu, we have Tracy Nyhold, who's the founder, Mike Bond, who is one of their leads, and Gabrielle Como Gustafsson, who is also a lead there. So I will hand things over to Tracy and Mike and Gabby, and I look forward to hearing this. It's a very interesting topic.
Thanks, Dee. I'll hand it over to Gabby, and Mike's going to share his screen to kick us off.
Hey everyone. So we're here to talk about securing CIAM authentication. And one of the things that keeps coming up repeatedly for us is verifying users of the CIAM system, verifying callers. And to that end, I wanted to talk a bit today about Caller Verify, which is the solution we developed to help facilitate caller verification for some of our CIAM customers. Go ahead, Mike. So the core problem is basically, how do you build a user-friendly and secure caller verification or member verification system that your average client can also easily implement? This came out of a bunch of our clients kind of talking about the same verification questions. We had a couple in particular who dealt with caller impersonation a lot, and they had been really ratcheting up their security questions in order to verify callers. They were hitting 10 minutes to verify callers. So they were like, is there a way we can make this secure but also friendlier for our members? Next slide, please, Mike. So there's a couple business cases that we approached with Caller Verify, especially as we moved to the actual Caller Verify subscription service, which you'll see in a few minutes. So our original clients that we developed this for are FIs, financial institutions, like just with social engineering or simple access to personal information. You got a lot of, I guess, fraud of opportunity. So that included an increase in family fraud. So like a family member who knew the answers to an elderly relative security question would call in, pose as the account owner, and request transfers and access to steal money. And that was the original Caller Verify use case. We also have had real interest in Caller Verify in telecommunications. As some of you probably know, the CRTC recently brought in a requirement that telecoms have to verify customers before agreeing to port phone numbers due to SIM swap, phone porting fraud, and fraudulent transactions, stuff like that. Because that also allows fraudulent actors to leverage SMS PIN authentication to, say, pivot into your bank account if your bank account uses SMS PIN as a second factor. And the third item was high value transaction fraud, like large ticket fraud, big ticket items, in which a bad actor orders something like airline tickets using stolen credit card information. Don't know if that's happened to anyone else here, but that's definitely happened to me once or twice. Any questions or comments so far? All right. I see Tracy shaking her head. Next slide, please, Mike. So I kind of touched on compliance and best practices already, but we did devise Caller Verify to help our customers more easily meet compliance standards and best practices. There are a lot of industry recommendations for banks and credit unions to implement stronger MFA, and there's a lot of pressure building from customer bases and competitors to provide a more secure online banking experience. Please don't quote me on this number, I'm doing it from memory. When we present to FIs, I think it's something like 38% of customers would seriously consider moving if there was a security concern at their FI. So it's become a real consideration for more and more people. And like I mentioned before, in Canada, the CRTC has introduced requirements to prevent unauthorized number porting and SIM swaps, which is a huge step forward for consumers. But as we all know, not all of your factors provide the same level of protection. So obviously you've got password and security questions, which are the very factors that led us to being called upon to develop replacements. There's a lot of us have dealt with SMS, voice, and email PIN becoming more popular, which is an improvement along with software OTP, physical OTP. And then our preferred solution is push verification, which hits a sweet spot in our experience between being easy to implement and relatively easy to push out. It doesn't require a physical token to be presented like U2F. And it feels less immediate and personal to the customer than biometrics. So it's kind of a sweet spot in between security and convenience. So yeah. We've also got some legacy challenges that we had to address with Caller Verify as well, kind of addressing some of the challenges with existing security question and SMS PIN solutions. We had, security questions and PINs can be a bit of a challenge for callers who have memory or visual impairments, or if you just don't remember the anniversary of when you opened your credit card, which is a lot of us. A lot of our customers really struggled with how slow and insecure things like secure personal and service related questions could be. Like if I'm trying to go through like what my address is for the last 5 years, what services I have, do I have snowmobile insurance? Like I live in a city, it's pretty easily guessable. I don't have snowmobile insurance. You can guess things like my birthday or my pet's names through social media or my online presence. And then we have some American companies that we've seen who get around this by giving you a PIN that they print on your bill. So hopefully your roommate isn't a fraudster. But if your roommate's a fraudster, this obviously raises another challenge because the PIN doesn't change on a regular basis and it falls back to a static PIN that is accessible to the sort of family and close friends fraud that we were trying to avoid. And then as in any IAM implementation, there's the question of cost, and there's obviously a wage cost for an agent who is performing 10 minutes of security question verification that we thought we could give our customers, those agents, time back to actually help members and customers. Everyone with me so far? All right, awesome. Mike, can we do the next slide? So Techjutsu enhances your existing IVR and IAM solution to provide caller verification via a second factor token. We brought Caller Verify in to drop verification time. We found it dropped from about 10 minutes to less than 1 minute for our clients who've brought this in so far. And because of the push verification, it's tied specifically to your device rather than being tied to something that, like looking up your cat's name on Facebook or being able to guess or bluff through a static PIN. And since it's a one-touch verification, we found it was also a real user experience enhancement for a lot of our customers. Next slide, please, Mike. All right, I think I will hand it over to Mike to talk about Caller Verify.
Thanks, Gabby. So Caller Verify itself, Obviously, Gabby's given you a lot of the background of where the business solutions or problems were and the solutions that we've tried to come up with. So we created Caller Verify out of that need to reduce that verification time. As Gabby said, it's an easy to use. We kind of want people to use that push notification as a first step. It's less friction. It gets you that verification fast, right? And prevents fraud. So let me move on here.
And Mike, we have a question from Chris. When you do the demo, can you discuss the recovery flow, please?
Sure, absolutely. So how does this work? So we've got two kind of major use cases. This one here is actually a customer service center experience. This is talking about a call center agent speaking to a human being. Essentially, someone will start the process by calling into a call center. It could be a utility, it could be telecommunications, it doesn't matter, an FI. The call center picks it up and typically asks the person for a personal identifiable piece of information. It could be an email address or an account number, something like that, to get them started. Once they've looked up that account number, then they can go through the verification process. The great thing about verification of Caller Verify, and we'll see this in the demo, is that it actually takes longer to explain the process than it does to actually do the verification. That's the key. Reducing this down from a 5-10 minute process down to about a 30-second, 1-minute process. So they do the identification. They see that the person or the client has a authentication factor registered, and they trigger the verification where the device that the user has can say yes or no to the verification. So it's pretty simple, it's pretty quick and easy. So that's call center verification use case. The second one is actually an automation use case. So this is the calling into an IVR where you're not actually speaking to a human. So this could be either pre-verification before talking to a human, or this could get them into account automation that they can do. So the call is picked up by the IVR. The IVR prompts the user to enter either an account number, phone number, personal identifiable number or information. That IVR can then communicate with and integrate with Caller Verify to look up that account and do the verification trigger, prompt the user to accept the verification on their device, and then they can say yes or no. At that point in time, the IVR can decide whether or not that call gets prompted or sent over to the fraud department, or if it just forwards the call to allow the user to either account management, transfer funds, whatever they need to do, right? Change the billing information. So that's pretty straightforward. The IVR integration with Caller Verify is pretty straightforward, and we're looking to expand that to multiple IVR solutions. Okay, so the portal, Caller Verify itself. We wanted to make this user-friendly, non-complex, so we didn't want a UI that had multiple fancy buttons and usage. We want to be a simple interface to get people from the point of identification to verification as soon as possible. So the user experience on both the call center agent integrating with and using the UI, and the caller that's being verified is quick. It's customizable, which means that Caller Verify can be integrated within a company's infrastructure. It can be logos, color schemes, customized branding, but also customized features too. We've got the ability to add and remove, support the entire UD infrastructure for custom attributes. So you can have any sort of attribute that you want to display in results or search by for verification of customers. So without further ado, I think the next one is actually the demo slide. So during this demo, I'm actually going to ask Gabby to facilitate this and play the role of the caller that's calling into the call center, and I'll play the role of the call center agent. So let me pull up the interface here. So it's a simple interface. As it stands right now, we've integrated this with Okta as an IDP. So this would be something that the call center agent would see and log into on a daily basis. I hit login here. You can see we're integrated with our Okta tenant. Simple authentication and authentication policies would apply here. You can put it behind any sort of factor authentication. Let me approve mine. And then you're logged into the interface. This is the main interface for Caller Verify. It's a simple interface. Like I mentioned before, we didn't want to fill it with a bunch of bells and whistles. We wanted to get from identification to verification quickly. But it's a very powerful interface. So we've got attributes that we can search for right now. We've got a base set of attributes, typical stuff, username, email address, phone number, first and last name, things like that. And then you can have custom attributes, for instance, an employee number or account number, things like that. So if I go into an email address and ask Gabrielle to send me her or tell me her email address so I can look up her account.
And that would be gabrielle.camo@techjutsu.com.
So I can look up her information. And what that's doing is integrating with our Okta tenants to find registered accounts under that information and give me the information on those profiles. So as you can see here, we found one person under that information. We've got a phone number, employee number, it's not filled out. And then we've got status. And the status is important to get the call center agent to the point of verification quickly. So you can see that her account is active. In the state of a deprovisioned account or an account that's currently in recovery, there's a different scenario and a different workflow that they probably want to take the caller down to assist them rather than just jumping directly to verification. So in a recovery flow, for instance, if the user's in a recovery flow, they're in a password reset flow. So then the call center agent can either choose to walk them through that if it's a process that the client or the company has integrated with, or they can actually forward them off to assistance with regards to either a website self-service reset or through that process. And then the MFA column is the actual factors that are enrolled for that user. So you can see that Gabrielle's actually got multiple factors enrolled on her account. If we hover over top of it, you can see that she's got Okta Verify Push, Okta Verify TOTP, which is the fallback, and then Google Authenticator, which is also a TOTP factor. And so we push clients to integrate with Okta Verify because it's easy, it's quick, and it's accessible, right? So you don't have to worry about 6-digit pins being transferred back and forth. Even though that's something that more and more people are getting familiar with these days. Even my 70-odd-year-old father does TOTP with his bank now, so he's on the ball for that. And then once we've got an enrolled factor and we see that they're able to be verified, we can jump to the action. And the action currently is to be able to verify. So if we verify MFA, we get to choose from one of the 3 factors. So if I click on verify for push, I'm going to talk to Gabby now, the caller, and say, okay, I see you've got a device registered with your account profile. I'm going to push a verification to your device. If you can please accept that verification so I can continue to assist you. So I've hit verify. What that does is it reaches out and triggers the verification on Gabby's phone.
My phone's just buzzed. There. I hit yes, it's me. And any second now.
There we go. So as much as that's so easy, that still sits behind either a Touch ID or Face ID or PIN on Gabrielle's phone. So even if their phone is sitting there and her roommate picks it up or somebody else picks that phone up, they're not able to say yes to that prompt or even no to that prompt to do the verification without Gabrielle present. So there's that tie-in with the registered device. So that's the successful use case. And as you can see, it took me longer to explain the process than it did to actually do the verification. If I'd come in here and talked to Gabrielle and gotten her information and pulled up her account and done the verification, that all could have been done within 30 seconds. So that's the positive use case. What about the negative use case? So what if we've got somebody that's actually got Gabrielle's email? It's not hard to guess. She knows where she works, or they know where she works. And we go through the process of doing verification. I asked the person on the other line who I think is Gabrielle, but it may not be. And in this case, it could be somebody who's, like I said, who's gotten her information. So if I do the verification here and say, okay, I'm going to push the verification to their phone, and I do verify, Gabrielle could be sitting at home having dinner with her family, or at least her COVID cohort, and then go and see the phone prompt come up and say, I'm not talking to my bank right now, or my telecommunications. I'm sitting in having dinner with my family. So at this point in time, she can say no, or she can dismiss the prompt. So by ignoring it or saying no actively, she could reject that verification, and I can see immediately that the verification was rejected. So I can either continue to try and assist that caller, or what we recommend doing is having some sort of fraud procedure so that the caller can actually be flagged, the call center agent can flag that as a potential fraudulent transaction. So if we close that, there's an additional login that's going to be showing up in future releases for us to be able to see the number of failures and failure authentication attempts that have happened on an account within a 24-hour period. And what that will do is that will give the call center agent some context about what's happening with that account. Should it be flagged as fraudulent? Should there be further integration or investigation happening with that fraudulent transaction? So that's the interface. It's simple, but it's very powerful and very quick to do. There's a couple of quick things to point out. Essentially, with the actions, there's a view profile and Okta link. And what that does is it takes you to an external SSO-enabled link directly into the Okta tenant to verify or to change information on the Okta profile. And then there's an Okta admin portal link, which takes you directly into the Okta admin portal to be able to change and update profile attributes. And that allows the call center agent to also help the caller to update things like phone numbers or employee numbers or whatever that might be. So it's quick. That being said, we'll go back in here and then move forward just to ask. I'll leave this up for a minute while we kind of talk about some Q&A and questions. So I know that Chris had asked about recovery flow. So the recovery flow in the sense of recovering factors or recovering passwords. So I'll talk about recovering factors because that's really kind of what verification is about. And so recovering factors. So if a customer has a device registered with an account, and Gabrielle, do you want to take this question?
Oh, I flagged it as me answering it. Oh, I was just flagging it.
Would you like to answer the question live? You can answer it, or I can continue. It doesn't matter to me.
You go for it. Sorry, I didn't mean to say.
No worries. No worries. So with recovering factors, so right now as it stands, there's the ability for a customer service agent to go from that view profile link that I showed you directly into the Okta profile. And so they can assist the caller with re-registering their verification. Now, we recommend that that the call center agent or the company have additional methods to be able to verify, or at least have a process in place to verify that that user who they say they are prior to doing a factor reset, because it is a way definitely for somebody to be able to convince or social engineer a call center agent to be able to reset and re-register a factor. That's definitely a risk, but it's a risk that's already known, and it's a risk that's part of a call center agent communication and rollout. So when we work with clients, we work with them on that as well to make sure that they're aware of the risks involved, and that those typical types of factor resets could be mitigated with additional factors being registered. So if it's just Okta Verify and that's all they've got registered, it makes that factor registration process harder to work through or to verify who the caller is. But if you've got more than one factor registered, or having the ability to go through another factor like email verification or PIN verification, things like that, which are typically less secure, but definitely a method of verification, then it allows you to verify who that person is to do the factor reset and re-enrollment. Hopefully that answers the question. How do I envision onboarding clients self-serve portal? So I believe when you're talking about clients, I think you're talking about onboarding clients that use Caller Verify, or clients that the customers at the call center end are using it. So when you are talking about enrolling or onboarding clients, clients of Techjutsu, as far as our customers are concerned, sign on as part of a SaaS service. So we work with them to integrate that with their Okta identity provider. And as far as customers that are working with the Okta tenant, I guess, to do a verification or to do enrollment, typically those are SIAM customers that are doing some sort of user migration process. And during the user migration process, we'll do a factor enrollment. So they'll do a 2 factors or single factor enrollment as part of their SIAM user migration process. And I think that's presuming a customer has SIAM IDP in process, how long is the typical deployment? So if they've already got SIAM IDP in place, so right now Caller Verify is integrated with Okta, but we're definitely looking at integrations with other IDPs outside of Okta, and the maturity of those APIs definitely depends upon that integration. But a typical integration for caller verification in an existing SIAM Okta IDP instance could be up and running within less than a day. Typically, it's just a deployment and integration, working with the client SMEs to get that integration in place, getting the configuration in Okta and deploying it. So it's pretty quick. We can get it up and running in a day. Sweet. So I think we're going to move on for now from those questions.
One more in the chat from Chris Wallace. At the risk of being provocative, this seems like a great stopgap measure to eventually be replaced by digital ID and verifiable creds.
Did you want to take that, Gabby? I don't have the question in front of me, so.
Yeah, it's in the chat if you can pull that up. So I think the caller verification side of the issue, even with the digital ID, that never really goes away. And you always have to have some mechanism in place to verify someone on the phone. So yeah, I think perhaps the method, yeah, and as Tracy points out, we do work with DID companies. We partner with a couple of them as part of our work here at Techjutsu.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's definitely food for thought for sure. And verification still has to happen. If you're calling into and talk to a human, they've got to know who you are and that they're talking to the right person. But beyond that, digital identities and authentication that help you get into the process of, and I think DID is going to expand beyond just identities and authentication to these services, but also they've expanded that to do things like verification of certificates and diplomas and verification of, which is probably coming, vaccines for COVID. So it's going down that route, right? But it doesn't necessarily help you with verification through a human. It does help you to authenticate. So maybe if you're doing self-service through your banking app, DIDs might help you do that process. Yeah, so definitely a good food for thought. Thank you for saying that. So customers first, definitely talking about push second factor for online, mobile banking, IVR, things like that. They'll having customers be, wondering why things were taking so long before and why security questions were such a friction-based process. 36% of customers will consider leaving an FI if there's a data breach. So I think that's something that Gabby had touched on before with regards to our business problems, is that people are willing to give up that that relationship they've got with their FI if it gives them more peace of mind. And I really would like a lot of the Canadian banks that are kind of lagging behind second factor to be able to kind of pull this up. So banks and credit unions to be able to move that forward. And we are seeing that move forward in the industry, but it's definitely something that's a long time coming, especially when you consider some of the US and European banks that have been doing it for years and decades in some cases. So customer verification, it's easy, it's push factor, it's accessible, which is good for people with either technology adverse or visual impairments and things like that. And it's anything that can be done from a phone, whether they're out and about or if they're at home. I think that brings us to the current end of our presentation. So I know we went through some questions already, but if we're definitely open to have any more questions or comments. And then follow-up discussions. We also have follow-up discussions on what we call Techjutsu technical office hours every Tuesday at 1 Mountain. So if people have like IAM topics or things that they want to discuss, that's definitely some time to come and talk to us, and we can discuss those. I think we're going to pass it over to Tracy for some comments, and then I don't know if she wants to pass it to Z. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just unmuting everyone as well if anyone has any questions they want to verbalize. But yeah, thank you very much, Mike and Gabrielle, and I will pass it back to Z if there's no more questions.
I actually see one last question that I'm going to pass over to Mike. Can we augment supplement with a FIDO token? I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good question. As you saw today, that's Caller Verify in its current state, but there's definitely a future and focused roadmap for deployment, which I won't share here, but either way, we do have a roadmap for development of for the development integrations of Caller Verify. And as far as FIDO tokens are concerned, one of the things that when you're talking about U2F or FIDO tokens is you need to be able to present them to some sort of authentication mechanism. So whether that means that they need to be either on their phone and we push some way for them to present that token to their phone, or push some way to present that token to a laptop that they're nearby to prove their verification. That's definitely doable, and it's definitely something that is not new, that has come up before. Absolutely. Good question.
Yeah, one of the edge cases that we've discussed with Caller Verify is using it, like say in a large multinational, for verification of employees calling interdepartmentally. So that's definitely something where augmenting with a FIDO token would probably come up. If I were to guess right now, maybe sooner than in a customer facing use case. But yeah, it's absolutely something on the, I'll let Mike speak authoritatively to what is on the roadmap, but expanding the verification integrations, I think, is of interest for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, FIDO tokens we don't typically see in SIAM deployments, and Gabby touched on it. It's something that's maybe more workforce orientated. But we have had clients before that have offered at least a factor for their clients to be able to do things like YubiKeys, which are a little harder to convince clients that they want to enroll. But for those clients that have maybe that higher sense of security, they may consider investing it. It is a financial investment, so it's something that you'd have to buy and purchase and kind of enroll, but it's definitely something that we would see maybe more on the workforce side than on SIAM. Awesome.
Does anybody have any
Oh,
other
you're on mute.
questions? Am I on mute?
Yeah, but you
No,
look like
you're
you're having a
unmuted
great
now, I can
conversation.
hear you. Mhm.
I'm on mute. Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So does anybody have any other questions? No, it looks like we're good. I'd like to thank Tracy and Gabby and Mike and the Techjutsu crew for coming out to do this meetup with us today. Hopefully we're going to have more meetups coming up down the road, and we're not going to have another year where it's silent, because hopefully the pandemic ends and we're able to have like some food and actually meet people and all of that stuff again sometime down the road. But Tracy, you are going to post the discussion somewhere.
Yeah,
today?
we have a Techjutsu YouTube channel that we'll post it on, and I'll send you the link to shout out to everyone.
Okay, so I'll post a link to this, and if anybody has any questions about this, for sure, let me know and I'll forward them over to Techjutsu. And I think that's it for today, guys. So thank you very much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for doing it. It's definitely a testing ground for us to make sure that we can do it. So I think I'm glad that everybody was able to join today. and I definitely learned something new, and I hope everybody else did too.
That was good. Thanks.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Stay safe.
Yeah. Get vaccinated.
Bye.
Talk to you
Bye-bye.
later. Bye.
All right. Bye.